Hello, dear students. Welcome to What, Why, How, a daily initiative by IAS Baba, where we take up a current topic or an editorial and we try to declutter it in less than 10 minutes. The topic that we have chosen for today is regarding a science and tech topic primarily, but it also has an impact on your internal security. So the news regarding this is, are the militants in Manipur using Starlink satellite internet? Very recently, it was seen that in certain areas in Manipur, where the several security agencies had believed that there was the presence of militants, they were able to retrieve a certain box that was used to access or that was allegedly used to access Starlink's internet service. Okay, now it brought into question what exactly is Starlink and why is it being used and what is the concern regarding it. So, to understand this, Starlink is actually a low cost satellite based broadband network that can provide global internet access. This is actually created by the company called as SpaceX that is related to Elon Musk. What it tries to do is all around the earth, it tries to put in several satellites, and through the satellites, it can provide your internet service. Now, understand this particular Starlink system that they are planning to create, all the satellites in it will be launched in the low Earth orbit. Now, the low Earth orbit, the primary range that these satellites would be in is your 350 kilometer to 1200 kilometer from the Earth's surface. So this is the primary idea of the Starlink satellite. The goal of Starlink is primarily to give global internet access at a very low cost and high speed. This is the idea of your Starlink. Now, coming to certain other prelims aspects of it, the goal that Elon Musk had when it came to Starlink was because, see, if you had to provide internet to the remote parts of the world, you need to have satellites placed all around the earth. Now, when you are placing satellites all around the earth, especially in the low earth orbit, there are certain advantages associated with it. One of the main advantages associated with something being placed in the low Earth orbit is it has a reduced latency. Reduced latency means that the time taken for a signal to be received by the satellite and then therefore transmitted after that, this is the total time taken for transmission. The higher the satellite is, there is always a delay between receiving and transmitting. The lower if the satellite is placed, the time delay is going to be less. And this time delay is called as your latency. So if you do have satellites in your lower orbit, it will have a reduced latency. And then also what would happen is if you want to cover the earth in a good manner, you can see that you will need several satellites. So when you have several satellites, the advantage of it is that it will cover even the remote parts of the world. But the disadvantage of the satellite is that, see, if you take a certain satellite, the point of range of that satellite to which it can give the internet is going to be quite less if it is in your low Earth orbit. If it's there in your high Earth orbit, this range is going to be much more higher. So now, because it is only covering a very low range, this is also the reason why you need multiple satellites in the low Earth orbit. Now, on one hand, it will give us internet, but on the other hand, if you look at it, when you have these many multiple satellites in the low Earth orbit, the low Earth orbit is going to get quite congested and it can also lead to a lot of signal disruptions. This is one of the disadvantage of your Starlink. Also, if it increases the number of satellites, there's going to be increased space debris, there's going to be increased risk of collisions, etc. Anyhow, the Starlink and a lot of similar satellite-based internet services like your OneWeb, Geo, all of these services are now planning to launch satellites and provide your satellite-based internet. Now comes the point of why is this news so important right now? The news is so important because see, Starlink tries to give internet to the whole world. But the whole world, certain parts which are maybe in conflict areas, certain parts which have maybe some internal security criterias, they don't want to allow Starlink access over there because it can even lead to militants using this service for unwanted purposes. But when very recently in Manipur, they have found that the militants might be allegedly using this, it brings into question as to how Starlink is being even accessed in India, because Starlink services are not supposed to be accessed in India. Why? Because India has clearly prohibited Starlink services in our country. Then how did they access the Starlink internet in India? That brings into question that most of the time, see, the international borders which are there between countries are not very solid. There might be certain contested areas, certain unclear areas, etc. And moreover, it is not very easy to refine satellite internet coverage to a particular degree. And if you just cross the degree, it will get cut. That is not possible when it comes to satellite internet. So what happens is sometimes in the Indian borders, it might be regulated. But if you are at the sea or if you are at a very close degree to another country, maybe in that area, if Starlink can be accessed, what happens is militants and miscreants might try to access it from there. So this might be the reason why Starlink could have been accessed from Manipur. Then certain satellites which are also trying to get you transmitting signals using encrypted signals, what also can happen is this encryption can also be hacked by militants and therefore also used by these militant forces which are there trying to get the internet access. Now, India strictly regulates and restricts the use of satellites-based communication, and this is the reason why Starlink is also prohibited in our country. And also under the Section 6 of the Indian Wireless Act and Section 20 of the Indian Telegraph Act, any use of your iridium satellite phones is also illegal in the country. But they have now found all of these evidences, once in Manipur and another time even in Andaman and Nicobar Islands. So at this point, the question becomes the internal security versus space development. On one hand, we do get the point of having internet access all around the world and all around in India, even in areas where your optical fibers could not reach. And that is going to have so much of internet penetration and it can lead to widespread development for the citizens. But on the other hand, this can also get misused and can lead to internal security problems. So when it comes to services like Starlink, OneWeb, etc., the point is to create a balance between internal security and your satellite development. And at this point, internal security has to be given a little bit more prominence because it can lead to widespread impact in our country. I hope you've understood the topic for today. Until we meet next time, take care and happy learning.